Failure doesn't break most people, it teaches them, but only if they're receptive to learning. Only if they stop seeing failure as the conclusion and start seeing it as the beginning. Because failure isn't final, it's feedback, it's information. It's life delivering you the raw elements for your next breakthrough. But most people never reach to that point because they stop too soon. They let shame drown out reflection. They let judgment muddy the lesson. They feel failure defines who they are instead of what they did, missing the possibility to learn, to grow, to sharpen, to rebuild from a deeper place. They miss the opportunity to rise. Not in spite of the collapse, but because of it. Failure isn't just an event, it's an invitation. One that only appears for those bold enough to try. You don't fail because you're weak. You fail because you're human, because you pushed, because you reached, because you moved forward instead of staying where it was safe. That's not failure, that's movement. And migration always bears risk, but danger is the price of growth. You can't grow strength without pressure. You can't build resilience without resistance. And you can't know what you're capable of if you're never willing to try your limitations. You'll never find your edge if you're continuously avoiding it. So when failure shows up, it will interrupt your plans. It will humble your confidence. It will put you off balance. But what it can also do, if you let it, is build you. If you remain with it long enough to see the mirror it holds up, it will change your life. The truth is you will fail. No matter how prepared you are, no matter how talented, disciplined, or dedicated you are, life will knock you down. People will misinterpret. Plans will go apart. You will fall short. That's not the problem. The problem is what you choose to do next. Will you spiral? Will you believe the deception that you're not good enough? Or will you pause? Will you reflect? Will you collect the data? Reconstruct your mentality and come back stronger. Not because you avoided the fall, but because you learned how to stand up differently. You weren't built to stay down. You weren't built to avoid failure. You were created to learn through it, to progress through it, to get the depth, insight, and perspective that only comes from falling and determining you're still worthy of rising. So, don't fear failure. Don't avoid it. Don't water down your life to protect your pride. A life without failure is a life without risk, and a life without risk is a life without progress. You weren't meant to stay the same. You were designed to evolve, not just when things are smooth, but especially when they're perplexing, difficult, or coming apart. That's when the actual job starts. That's when your future self is shaped. The first step in turning failure into development is to shift how you define it. If you keep defining it as defeat, you won't be able to learn from it. If you continue to consider failure as a reflection of who you are, instead of viewing it as something you're learning from, you'll repeat the same cycle and stay stuck, not because of what happened, but because of how you perceive it. Failure is not personal, though many individuals perceive it that way. They internalize the fall, connecting their identity to the outcome. Instead of stating, "This didn't work," they say, "I failed." That slight shift in language, from observing the circumstance to identifying with it, creates a responsibility that only gets greater with each effort. You don't fail because you're broken. You fail because you're growing, stretching, entering into the unknown, and testing new boundaries. You fail because you're trying, and that's something most people never do. Many stay in the center, avoiding danger, guarding their image, and never fully learning what they're capable of. But when you're willing to fail, you have access to truth, progress, and clarity. Failure exposes what success hides. It shows you where the weak parts are, what you need to improve, and the difference between what you believed was strong and what actually is. However, this understanding only comes when you stop avoiding the lesson. When you stop making excuses, stop blaming others, and stop evading the mirror to look at yourself honestly. That's the shift. You go from judgment to observation, from humiliation to strategy, from "I am such a failure" to "this didn't work, why?" From "I'm not good enough" to "what skill, habit, or mindset broke down." You start becoming a scientist of your own path. You take notes, investigate patterns, do experiments, and instead of giving up, you adapt. You return to the drawing board with more data ready to modify your strategy. That's true growth, not in getting it perfectly every time, but in remaining dedicated to the process long enough to get better each time. Over time, the person who is willing to think, review, learn, and rectify will begin to rise. Not because they never fail, but because they continually learn wisdom as they fall. You stop wondering, how can I avoid failing? And start asking, how can I get better at failing forward? How can I reduce the recovery time? How can I make the setback worth more than simply pain? How can I apply what I've learned to the next decision, the next plan, the next relationship? When you adjust your perspective in this way, failure becomes a teacher, a guide. It's no longer something to be ashamed of, but something to empower you. You're no longer terrified of failure since you've taken away its sting. You've flipped the narrative. And this adjustment doesn't only impact how you react to mistakes, it transforms your willingness to try. You stop tiptoeing, you stop hesitating, you stop playing it safe. Instead, you go quicker, test more, create more, take greater risks. You're no longer fearful of falling. You're afraid of staying stagnant. You're no longer consumed with defending your pride. You're focused on improving your progress. And the more you construct, the more resilient you become. You don't just bounce back, you grow forward. You emerge from failure with more than you had before. More wisdom, more insight, more clarity. Because you took the time to ask better questions. You stop blaming and start constructing. And when you create this way, when you stop avoiding failure and start using it, you become dangerous. Not to others, but to your old self. To the part of you that used to freeze, the part that used to quit, the part that used to stay little because it dreaded not getting it right the first time. You don't live that way anymore because you've decided to grow, to learn, to stretch, to reach, to fall forward, and to construct something worth falling for. That approach produces a new kind of person. Someone who doesn't require promises, someone who doesn't dread the fall, someone who realizes that every missed shot is a lesson no one can take away. Failure doesn't merely test your method, it tests your identity. It wonders, who are you when your plans collapse? Who are you when the results aren't there? Who are you when the acclaim fades and the momentum stalls? And most importantly, who are you when the only person watching is you? Because failure will show what you're genuinely attached to. It will demonstrate if you're seeking affirmation or living out a goal, whether you're chasing an identity or embracing one, whether you're grounded in truth or floating on approbation. And while you might not always like what it reveals you, that's good, since clarity is a gift, painful as it may be. Even if it exposes that you've been growing for the wrong reasons, or that your confidence was more about outward validation than internal strength. It's more about control than courage. Once you embrace this, you can start shifting. You can begin rooting your identity deeper. You cease being the person who needs to be correct or perfect. Instead, you become someone who keeps turning up, adjusting, and building, not to impress others, but because that's who you've decided to be. That's when failing ceases becoming scary. Your identity is no longer built on outcomes. It's rooted in alignment, consistency, and your relationship with yourself. You know who you are, not because everything turned out, but because you continued showing up even when things didn't go your way. Most people haven't built that inner solidity. So when defeat arrives, they crumble. They connect their worth to the loss and allow one bad day rewrite their entire story. Not because they have to, but because they haven't constructed a stable foundation. But you can establish that foundation, and it starts with deciding to separate your worth from your results. You have to say, I am not defined by what I achieve. I am who I choose to be in every season. The wins don't make you better, and the losses don't make you less. That doesn't mean you stop caring. It implies you cease tying your identity to factors beyond your control. It shows you care sincerely, yet you don't crumble when things don't go as planned. You feel it, but you're not held by it, and that gives you freedom, the ability to create, to experiment, and to pivot. You're not constructing for validation anymore. You're building for growth. You're growing from integrity, since it aligns with who you're becoming. When defeat comes, and you don't spin, you don't spiral. You reflect, breathe, and get still. You question yourself, what does this teach me about how I see myself? Where did I let performance override presence? Where did I sacrifice truth for image? Those inquiries sting, but they release you. They clear out what doesn't belong, they help you rebuild, this time without the ego, without the masquerade, without the fear of being misunderstood. Now you're grounded. Now you're constructing from identity, not for it. And when failure occurs, it's only another step. It's part of the rhythm. It humbles you, yeah, but it doesn't shake your core. It sharpens you, yeah, but it doesn't make you recede. Now that you know who you truly are, no outcome can take that away. This is the version of yourself that stands strong, doesn't fake it, and doesn't break apart when things get rough. This is the version who is grounded, who has taught their nervous system to tolerate setbacks without losing their sense of self. You've acquired resilience, not via continual successes, but by rising every time you fall. The more you live this way, the more you divide what happens from who you are. With each step, you expand in capacity. You stop fearing failure and start welcoming danger. You begin saying yes to new chances, adopting bold ideas, and letting go of what no longer serves you. And when others ask you how you keep moving forward, how you bounce back, or how you continue to show up after a painful fall, you won't need a sophisticated answer. You'll just smile, because you know it was never about avoiding the fall. It was about learning how to rise. Failure doesn't only test your persona, it tests your systems. It forces you to go beneath the surface and ask, what broke? Not from a place of shame, but from a place of strategy. Sometimes, the fall wasn't due to weakness. It was because of hidden gaps or faults in your foundation. Until something fails, you don't notice they're there. Most individuals build on autopilot. They build habits they never examine, routines they never refine, and priorities they never actively set. When everything is going smoothly, this feels fine. But when things go wrong, that's when the flaws reveal up. It's during chaos that your systems are exposed. How you process emotions, how you manage time, how you handle ambiguity, and how you execute under pressure. If you're not conscious, failure will repeat itself, simply in various forms. But if you're ready to step back, slow the spiral, and ask smarter questions, you can start to upgrade everything. Not only how you feel, but how you function. Not only what you want, but how you build. Failure is feedback. It shows you where things broke. It's not telling you that you're not good enough. It's informing you that your existing strategy isn't working anymore. If you can accept that without shrinking back or breaking down, you'll mature faster than others. Start with your habits. What behaviors contributed to the breakdown? What were you doing or not doing that made your system vulnerable? Were you unprepared, overcommitted, avoiding difficult choices, putting off important talks, or depending on guessing instead of structure? Take inventory, but not with shame. Do it strategically. What needs to change in your preparation? What needs to shift in your boundaries? What has to be added to your schedule? And what should be deleted from your emotional space? The most successful people in the world don't merely reflect on what went wrong. They rebuild better systems. They don't try harder, they design smarter. They get intrigued, study, and modify the structure, not just the surface. Those systems form your safety net. They steady you when motivation drops. They protect your energies when emotions run strong. They ensure that your recuperation doesn't rely on willpower, but on insight. You start establishing systems that support your vision. Morning rituals that center you, recovery habits that reset you, communication patterns that foster alignment, and boundaries that conserve your ability. These systems scale, stack, and compound. You stop guessing, you quit winging it, you cease starting from scratch every time life hits. Now, you have something in place, something tested, something created from the insight that failure could offer you. You stop fearing the next breakdown, because when it comes, and it will, you know exactly what to do. You'll analyze the pattern, discover the gap, fix the leak, and come back stronger. Not because you're indestructible, but because you're aware. This is the distinction between persons who evolve and those who repeat. The ones that adapt don't just work harder after a fall. They don't just get motivated. They examine, adapt, and reconstruct the blueprint. You're not merely here to try again. You're here to build better. You're here to polish the way you approach life, to bring awareness to your daily routine, and to cease accepting systems that fall down under strain. Every time you rewire a habit, reinforce a boundary, or recalibrate your priorities, you create resilience. Not just emotional resilience, but functional resilience. The kind that helps you move cleaner, think brighter, breathe deeper, and grow stronger. This is how failure ceases being something to fear and starts becoming something you expect, prepare for, and utilize. Not because you're negative, but because you're wise. You realize failing is part of the rhythm. And when you're ready for it, you stop being reactive and start being responsible. You begin checking the structure. You ask, is this sustainable? Is this connected with where I'm going? Is this the kind of system that can hold me when the next wave hits? And if the answer is no, you begin building. Not with shame, but with strategy, clarity, and strength. Failure has a way of isolating you. It convinces you that you're the only one. No one else has fallen as hard as you, and no one else completely understands the weight you're bearing. If they knew, they'd likely walk away. If you told the truth, they'd judge you. So you kept it inside. You carry it discreetly, smiling on the surface while battling within. But it's in isolation that shame thrives, and shame, more than failure itself, is what keeps people stuck. It's not the mistake, but the significance you attach to it. It's not the fall, but the silence that follows. It's not the struggle, but the tale you tell yourself about what it says about you. But here's the truth. Everyone falls. Everyone. The individuals you admire, those whose lives look ideal, the ones who lead with confidence, they've all fallen. Some in public, others in secret, some dramatically, some softly. But no one develops a meaningful life without scars. What differentiates those who climb from those who stay down isn't perfection, it's connection. It's the willingness to be honest, to stay open, to stay surrounded by people. It's about inviting someone into the mess. Not for sympathy or rescue, but for introspection, realignment, and healing. You don't heal in isolation. You heal in community. You recover when you stop pretending. You recover when you find individuals who can hold space, who won't flinch when you say the truth, who won't back away when you admit the struggle, and who won't provide counsel before offering presence. That's why your surroundings is so crucial. The people around you, when chosen carefully, can either confirm your shame or help you rewrite your story. They can remind you of who you are when you've forgotten, reflect strength when you can no longer see it, but only if you let them in. You have to be honest. You have to quit pretending. You have to drop the act, because there's no strength in pretending. It might safeguard your image, but it will starve your growth. The truth is, most people will love you more when you're real. When you stop trying to impress people and start letting them see you. When you stop hiding behind a mask and proclaim, this is where I am, this is what I'm facing. That kind of vulnerability isn't weakness, it's strength. The kind that disarms shame, that opens doors, that creates trust. And once you feel that type of connection, you'll stop tolerating shallow circles. You'll stop wasting energy trying to be liked. You don't need everyone. You need the proper individuals. The ones who can hear your pain without rushing to solve it. The ones that can sit with your quiet without shifting the subject. The ones who speak life, not fluff, who encourage you to rise instead of merely soothing you. When you form that type of circle, when you declare you're done going alone, failure loses its grasp. You realize you're no longer isolated because now you have mirrors, not just echoes. You're constructing in the light, and that light, it gives healing, perspective, and clarity that you can't get on your own. Sometimes you're too near to the suffering to see the lesson, and you need someone who loves you enough to say, you're not seeing clearly, but I'm here until you do. That type of support multiplies strength. It shortens the distance between breakdown and breakthrough. It reminds you that failure doesn't define you, but it does shape you. And when sculpted in the presence of safe, keen people, you emerge stronger. If you've been attempting to accomplish this alone, stop. You weren't supposed to carry it all by yourself. The longer you hold it in quiet, the longer you delay the breakthrough. Start revealing the truth. Not to everyone, but to someone. Someone who's earned it, someone who's grown their own resilience, someone who knows how to listen, reflect, and hold space without shrinking. And if you don't have that person yet, be that person first. Create the space, Establish the circle, set the tone, because you're not the only one struggling. Sometimes the most powerful thing you can do is to go first. Failure is tough, but it doesn't have to be lonely. And when it's not lonely, it transforms. It becomes a lesson, a trigger, a time in the story that no longer feels like the end, but the beginning of something new. Failure doesn't only test your identity, your systems, or your support. It tests your vision. The moment something breaks, the moment your plan unravels, the issue becomes, do you still believe in where you're heading, or did your faith die with the strategy? Most people confuse the approach with the purpose. They think the strategy is the destination, and when that plan crumbles, they imagine the dream died with it. But the plan was just one path. The vision is still alive. The dream is still true, it only needs to be carried differently now. When you realize this, when you stop clinging to how it was supposed to happen and start questioning how it still can, your power returns. You stop trying to rewind, stop disputing with the past, you get present, you become creative, you get resourceful. Failure doesn't mean it's over. It implies it's time to pivot, to reevaluate, to polish your plan, and ensure you're still heading towards something that counts, something that's true. Because maybe the failure wasn't a block but a redirection. It was a redirection, a nudge, a wake-up call. The more adaptive you are, the faster you rise. Not because you're careless, but because you're not fragile. You've grounded your belief in something deeper than a single strategy. Your commitment spans deeper than your schedule. That's the mark of a leader, a creator, someone building something substantial. They don't collapse just because one door closed. They wonder, where's the next one? What I learned, how does this enhance my foundation? Vision doesn't imply you'll never fail. It means you don't stop when you do. It means you zoom out, reconnect with why you started, remove away what's superficial, and double down on what's crucial. Sometimes, failure discloses the fluff. It shows what didn't important, burns off distractions, and peels away ego. Underneath it, if you're still clear and devoted, you've got something real. But if you let the fall ruin your belief, you'll never see what's beyond it. You'll miss the new road, the next level. Because real faith is tested in the valley, not the peak. So when the fall comes, and it will, you pause, breathe, experience the sadness, acknowledge the loss. Then you question, what still matters? What was real in this? What's worth carrying forward? And you keep building. Don't wait for clarity to come effortlessly. You earn it by asking questions, through silence, through discomfort. Bit by bit, your feet discover the road again, not the one you intended, but the one that's true today. This is where resilience is forged, not in avoidance, but in redirection. It's in your ability to adapt without losing focus, to change without whirling, to retain your vision constant while the approach evolves. And the more you live this way, the more you realize failure doesn't rob you of your vision. It tells you how much of it you truly had. If it was simply about performance, the fall would ruin you. But if it was about purpose, the fall refines you. So you write a fresh plan, you ask better questions. You bring your experience into the following phase. You move forward not as someone starting again, but as someone moving forward smarter, sharper, stronger. And this time, you're not building blindly. You have scars that taught you. You have patterns you've outgrown. You have systems you've enhanced. And now, everything you construct next won't just be taller, it will stand longer. You're no longer just building on hope, you're building on history, undeserved wisdom, and untested belief. You're constructing with eyes wide open, and that kind of foundation lasts. It withstands difficulties, multiplies, and grows. So don't quit up now. Don't stay down. Don't wait for perfect weather or hunt for the same road. Look for the next one. Reconnect with what genuinely matters. Reignite your vision and build once more. You've moved past the surface, past the highlight reel. You've faced the real stuff. The truth of what failure truly is, the wisdom it imparts, the growth it enables, and the identity it creates when things don't go as planned. Failure isn't your enemy. It's your mentor. It's not a sign to stop. It's a sign to pay attention, reassess, rebuild, and rise with something fresh. Because when you come from failure with understanding, self-awareness, deeper roots, you haven't lost. You've leveled up. You don't need to escape the next fall. You need to quit fearing it. Understand deeply that when it comes, it won't break you. It will build you. It will polish you, turning you into someone who doesn't just recover but comes back wiser, stronger, and more powerful than ever before. You're not fragile, you've just been conditioned to play it safe. But safety doesn't unlock potential, failure does. So, from now on, stop living in dread of getting it wrong. Stop watering down your aspirations because of what can go wrong. Stop playing tiny only to avoid being seen trying. You were born to build, to lead, to grow, to evolve, and that growth will always involve failure. Not just once, but often. And now you know how to face it, how to listen to it, how to ask the proper questions, how to separate your worth from your outcomes, how to develop better systems, and how to draw on stronger support. You know how to reconnect with the vision you've been equipped with. The only thing left is to use it. Not later. Not when it's more convenient now. Show up for your life with the full understanding that failure is not the opposite of success. It is a part of it. So when it arrives, welcome it. Study it. Don't rush past it. Don't numb it. Don't judge yourself for it. Use it. Let it build you. Let it humble you. Let it teach you what success never could. Because what's developed through failure is deeper, stronger, and more authentic. The life you're building now, the one on the other side of disappointment, difficulties, and detours, isn't postponed. It's being developed, and you're right on time.